Welcome to the UFC Fight Island #1 strategy show. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. That is the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Pete, it's always great to be here talking a little MMA with you. Of course, we're in this range of fights, 3 fight cards in 8 days, coming off UFC 251. Overall, a pretty good night for me. In terms of my picks, definitely did not see Davey Grant going out there and knocking out Martin Day. And man, if you hit that Davey Grant TKO prop of plus 1,500, man, kudos to you. But how you doing, man?
What's going on? Hey, it was a good weekend for us. I think you went 10-3, 11-2. I went 9-4. So I mean, it was a very good week for us. Mixed bag. Ozdemir killed me for that little bet we had. But he looked good early on, and that was a very dangerous game that Jiří Procházka was playing with him, with the hands low and looking away and throwing shots. So sometimes logic gets in the way of results for me, and it clouds my judgment a little bit. And I think the smart play was Ozdemir, but man, props to you.
Yeah, it's there was definitely some scary moments on my side. I thought I was going to have to do the 20 push-ups. No, you got hands down, and times where he's not even looking at Volkan. I'm like, man, I know this is your style, but man, this is the UFC. Yeah. You got to fight a little more defensively there. But I think my other big takeaway, really, and I think it's a takeaway to lead into Wednesday night's card, is the judging. We saw some questionable judges. I think I don't know how you give 2 out of the 3 rounds to Jessica Andrade. While the co-main event to me was not a robbery, I thought it was 3-2 Max Holloway.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I was all over Volkanovski, and I still scored it for Max 3-2. It was a very tough night for judges there, and an even tougher night for the fighters that were on the wrong end of the judges' decisions. I feel for Max in that situation, man. Rose looked good. And when Andrade started to really push forward and press her and work in the uppercuts and the short range punches, you saw the success there. I wish he would have went to the takedown well a little bit. I think it would have made things a little bit more interesting. But, great fights all around. Great night.
Be sure to hit that thumbs up button here on YouTube. Of course, this show is sponsored by SuperDraft. Going to tell you about the great offer they have for all of our watchers later on here in the show. Of course, also, the show is available on podcasts as well. So be sure to check out all the Awesemo content on the podcast channels, on podcasts, Spotify, things along those lines. But Pete, let's get right into the fights. Calvin Kattar versus Dan Ige, 5-round featherweight matchup. Of course, Calvin Kattar coming off that tremendous knockout win against Jeremy Stephens. Dan Ige, who has been on a roll, he's won 6 in a row. He's coming off that win against Edson Barboza. Calvin Kattar, one of the biggest favorites on this card. You look over on the SuperDraft side of things. If you like Dan Ige, 1.5 times, 1.1 times for Calvin Kattar. Over on DraftKings, $9,100 for Calvin, $7,100 for Dan. And then on FanDuel, $22 for Calvin, $18 for Dan Ige. Kind of like last week, when you look at the pricing, exactly the same, where Usman was $22, Masvidal was $18. Let me get your perspective on, obviously, we're both very familiar with Calvin Kattar and his abilities, especially with his boxing abilities. So I guess my question is, how does Dan Ige win this fight if he cannot get the fight to the ground?
It's going to be a very, very tough fight for Dan Ige if he can't get it to the mat. You look at his previous fight against Edson Barboza. He had moments there, and it's where he was able to shell up decently defensively and then start to throw punches and bunches and really he has to turn up the volume. And I think that's the way he can win the fight, I guess, if he can't get the takedown, is by just basically out-throwing Calvin Kattar and beating him by points. But let me be honest, I don't see that happening, Jason. I've sparred Calvin Kattar. He has some great boxing, overall great striker, good coaching staff behind him. And a lot of people don't realize how well-versed he is on the ground as well. Some great jiu-jitsu coaches, some great takedown defense. I think it's going to be a rough night for Dan Ige. Obviously, if somebody winds up in an advantageous position, like Dan Ige somehow takes his back, that's a different story. But the most logical situation here is Calvin Kattar just boxes up Dan Ige for, I don't think it makes it 5 rounds. And if it does, he'll have a great score regardless. I think he puts away Dan Ige with one of these powerful shots. And I think it's a rude awakening for Dan Ige at the upper echelon of the division.
I think one of my questions about Calvin Kattar is I think from a DFS perspective, maybe the worst case scenario is the 3rd round stoppage.
Yeah, I thought about that. And I'm sitting there looking at all these 9K options and, upper 8K options. I'm like, okay, I know how Calvin fights and I know how patient he is. So a first round stoppage for me, I don't know if I see that going to happen for him. I just know how patient he is and how tight he is defensively. If Dan Ige throws, Calvin Kattar really, has a good guard. And then he starts to chip away and starts to find a home. I mean, look at the Jeremy Stevens fight. He made adjustments and then ultimately knocked him out. I can see the same thing happening here. Third round KO is probably the worst thing that could happen, basically because he doesn't throw with crazy high volume. I like Calvin Kattar, though. I'm not going to think twice about it. I'm going to put him in plenty of lineups. And then in some lineups to get a little contrarian. I don't know if you need the main event this week, but if you want the main event, Calvin Kattar for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that optimal lineup that we saw last week, where that was one of our big questions, and I want to pull up because I actually tweeted about it after the fight, so I give you what the optimal lineup was for that. On FanDuel, it was Jan in the MVP spot, Volkanovski, Namajunas, Rose, Yuri, and Grant. On DraftKings, it was, and this was in the Millionaire contest, Usman, Volkanovski, Jan, Holloway, Yuri, and Grant. And so, people, if you stacked the co-main event, which, look, I don't think there's any, I'm sure we will probably get a question about this. I don't consider Kattar Ige a fight that you want to stack.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it. I mean, the 7,100, if for some reason it does go 5 rounds, maybe Dan Ige at almost bare minimum salary kind of does it for you if you stack that fight. But the A side of the fight is Calvin Kattar. I don't see this being a necessary stacking option. Last week was really weird with 3 title fights, and that's where you had to get, super tricky with the strategy. I think it's pretty cut and dry this week.
Yeah. On the Calvin side of things, I mean, look, we know his the only thing I'd question about Calvin in any way would be boxing defense and being hittable.
Okay. So if you look at the stats, right? He throws 5 strikes a minute, but he also absorbs 6 strikes a minute. I think that's a little skewed though. I'm not sure. I think that's basically, on the Shane Burgos fight. That was a very back and forth fight where a lot of guys hit each other a lot. I think he has. I've sparred him, so I know that he has great defensive abilities. I don't see Ige being able to get through on any shots. And anything that Ige throws, Calvin Kattar is going to answer. I think he could just literally piece him up and just put on a clinic.
Hunter brings up a great comment in the chat, and this is something we kind of talk about a lot of in DFS. You always kind of you remember certain things, and Hunter going, he lost to Edson. That BS decision cost me some good coin. Yeah. I remember I had Edson that spot too. Those are in DFS. Those are things you remember when you're on that wrong side of whether it's a close decision on. I thought Edson won that decision personally, but look, it's a big opportunity for Dan Ige in this spot.
Yeah, huge opportunity. I think it's a very tough fight for him. It's not really like Calvin Kattar holds a significant reach advantage, just a slight reach advantage, but it's a skill advantage on the feet that I think is really going to end, with Calvin Kattar victorious. And, you talk about, being on the wrong end of bad decisions or bad picks. And, the co-main event, I'm seeing Tim Elliott stare me in the face and I'm like, oh, dude, he burned me so bad last fight. I just can't get over that.
Look at you transition to the next fight.
I have to, because I see this guy, right? I was all over him because of his potential for the takedowns and everything. And as of late, Jason, I don't know what the deal is with Tim Elliott, but it's like he's breaking under pressure. Doesn't it seem like he's kind of folding under pressure, where if a guy really starts to get aggressive with him, or if somebody puts him in a bad position, he'll scramble well and for a little bit, but it's almost like his cardio abandons him because he pushes such a high pace, and then that ultimately that fatigue leads to him, losing fights. So he's like a good, sprinter, but as a marathon runner, I'm not too sure. And this match was pretty interesting.
And the matchup is against Ryan Benoit, 8,500 for Tim, 7,700 for Ryan. Over on FanDuel, $17 for Elliott, $15 for Ryan. And then over on SuperDraft, 1.15 times for Tim, 1.5 times for Ryan. I talked to Tim about, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago, two and a half weeks ago. So he did not train in Vegas for this one. He went back to Kansas City. And so he was training there with the Glory MMA fitness team. Of course, that's James Krause gym, multiple UFC fighters in that gym. One of the things that he noted to me when we talked about the Brand Royal fight is that, he kind of knew the gas tank was not going to be there for all 15 minutes. That's why he was going for it early. Mentioned to me that, it was more of just exhaustion. He's like, I don't want to take anything away from Brandon. He said, he goes, but that played a massive role into it. At 8,500, look, Tim Elliott, one thing you know about him is it's going to be action. I don't think Tim knows how to be in a boring fight. To me, if Tim wins, he might be in the optimal lineup.
Yeah, I mean, he's shown in the past, against Luis Smolka that he can get a ton of takedowns and a ton of advances and rack up points and everything, as long as he can avoid getting submitted. The thing with Ryan Benoit is you just automatically assume he's a striker. But if you've done some research, you've seen that, his last bout, and for a while now, Gary Tonin, one of the best grapplers on the planet, is actually his head coach now. So Gary Tonin has been working extensively with him to develop his ground game and work on his submission abilities and his submission defense. Tim Elliott's weird. He has a crazy pace. He's, his nickname is like awkward, so it's perfect for him. And I think this is a fight that I'm going to be targeting a lot, Jason. Now, for me, I think Benoit's going to be able to do enough to get a decision, oddly enough, at 7,700. I just don't know if he's really a great DFS pick. I've seen Elliott fold way too many times. In his past 13 fights, Jason, he's 4-9. And in saying that, it is against, pretty elite competition or pretty good skilled opponents. Whereas Benoit's 3-4 in his last 7. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little salty about Tim Elliott, and I can't blame myself for it, but I'll have some shares of Tim Elliott based on the potential. And we have seen Ryan Benoit get taken down a lot. Ryan Benoit in 7 UFC fights has been taken down 17 times, and his opponents have advanced 15 times. If you look over at Tim Elliott, he has 44 takedowns, Jason, in 13 fights with 42 advances. So either way, I think this is a nice spot. I think that as long as Tim Elliott can survive and not get put in terrible positions and not sprint, maybe he turns it around and gets a W here, but I'm going to lean slightly to Benoit.
Yeah, I was watching Benoit's scrum earlier today, and he was kind of talking about, training up there at Renzo Gracie's. Biggest thing for him has been avoiding the coronavirus and watching just kind of how he, did things. He's 3-4 in the UFC. Obviously his most notable win in the UFC was against Sergio Pettis. But since then, his only 2 other wins are against Freddie Serrano and Mkhitaryan. You mentioned about Tim Elliott, 2-5. Since coming back to the UFC, he's lost 3 straight, which is kind of most interesting. The fact that we got a new contract after the last fight and got a pay raise, which is kind of. But I mean, look, this is one thing. But this is the thing about Tim Elliott. He's not going to be in a boring fight. It's going to be action pace, and his second fight in 46 days. I think the question more is going to be about, what will the gas tank be like there? Grant Dawson, who fights on Saturday, will be in his corner for this one. So that's kind of an interesting note in terms of that Glory fitness team. But I think the key point you mentioned about if Tim Elliott wins, is you're going to see a lot. You're going to see a lot of takedowns and a lot of advances, and that can rack up a lot of points.
Yeah, so I'm targeting this fight in a lot of lineups. Tim Elliott has 4 takedowns a fight, basically. Doesn't throw too many strikes, 3 strikes per minute. But if you look over at Ryan Benoit's takedown defense, his takedown defense is okay at 64%. But I don't know. I think that Benoit's going to be able to do enough to get a dub here.
Will in the chat says Benoit will outstrike Elliott and defend well. What's kind of your take on that?
Well, I think he will be prepared on the mat as far as submissions wise. Like, he'll probably be able to survive. I don't see Tim Elliott getting a finish over Ryan Benoit based on him training almost every day with Gary Tonin and the guys up at Renzo Gracie. But if he's staying on his back too much, then you're possibly losing rounds. With Tim Elliott, he's so crazy. I wonder how his fight IQ is, though, Jason, because Like he gets takedowns, but can't really hold people down, and then gets reversed. So I don't know. I like this fight.
Of course, this is the UFC Fight Night Kattar versus Ige strategy show right here on Awesemo.com, and we are sponsored by SuperDraft. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers contests for PGA, NASCAR, and MMA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using the promo code Awesemo10, and it's $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more and $20 total free on your first deposit of $100 or more. Download in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits, more winning. Of course, get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for the upcoming DFS slate on Wednesday and Saturday with the Awesemo Plus MMA Weekly Pass for $8.95. This includes full access to Awesemo's leading fire projections, ownership projections, and top fighter tool. There's never been a better time for MMA DFS, so step in the octagon today. Also, we do have a giveaway going on with the podcast. Check out the pin tweet on the Awesemo_com Twitter handle for a chance to win an Awesemo Plus monthly pass. This gives you access to all the premium content, tools, and projections on Awesemo.com for 30 days. All you have to do is subscribe to the Awesemo podcast channel, leave a 5-star review with your Awesemo username or Twitter handle included. It's that easy. One lucky random winner will be announced this Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Good luck. Now, Pete, let's move on down the card. We got Jimmy Rivera taking on Cody Stamann, and I want to mention some stats on Jimmy Rivera. First fight in 13 months.
Okay.
His last win, September 18th, 2018 versus John Dotson.
Okay.
When do you think his last stoppage win was?
Probably, what are we in, 2020? Probably 2013.
2015, his UFC debut against Marcus Brimage. That is a stat that I want to bring up. Cody Stamann, his second fight in 39 days. Both these men have lost to Aljamain Sterling. Of course, Cody coming off, that win just a little over a month ago. And looking at the prop bet over 2.5 rounds, I think this tells you a lot about what the betting public in Vegas thinks about this fight. The over 2.5 rounds, minus 370.
I think it should be higher. I mean, you have Jimmy Rivera, who only has 6 finishes in 22 wins. Okay. Cody Stamann has 8 finishes and 19 wins. Cody Stamann really looked incredible his last fight against Kelleher. He looked good. He had a higher output. Now, both of these guys are fighting at the 145-pound weight class. They're traditionally 135-pounders. So I think that kind of negates itself. It's not really a big deal. As far as Jimmy Rivera, man, he was on a heater for a while with a crazy 20-fight win streak or something nuts like that in his career. I like Jimmy Rivera. I've actually had a teammate of mine fight Jimmy Rivera and Justin Hickey. And Rivera's tough, has good boxing, good takedown defense as well. Just comes from a good camp. Tiger Schulman's very, very good camp, trained well. Cody Stamann usually resorts to his takedowns a lot, but I think he's really started to fall in love with his hands and his striking. You saw that in the Kelleher fight, had a higher output than usual. For me, I think this is going to go the distance as well. I don't particularly see a need to plug this fight in my lineup. Maybe if you're searching for value and you think it's going to be a close fight and Stamann can pull it off, then the 7,800 discount is definitely reasonable. I think Rivera gets it done. I think he wins a decision here. I don't know if it's necessarily the most DFS-friendly fight, but I am interested. I think it's a good fight.
Yeah, I mean, 4-inch reach advantage for Jimmy Rivera in this fight. I think that's something to note. People can see that right now on the screen with your heat sheet, which, of course, is available on Awesemo.com as well, so you can check it out there. Cody Stamann, he joked about it last time where he says, I've got dinosaur arms. When he was asked about staying at 45, and he's like, man, I'm a 35er. I just don't got long enough arms. But when you look at Jimmy Rivera, you look at his losses in the UFC. Peter Yan, the current champion, Aljamain Sterling, the number 1 contender, and Marlon Moraes, I guess you'd say the number 2 contender in the division. Yeah. So this is a guy who's fought the top of the top. Can he? This is obviously kind of. I don't know the best way to describe this fight for Jimmy Rivera. Like, to me, Cody Stamann has so much more to gain in this fight than Jimmy Rivera does. Because look, this is a fight they got put together last week.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really know how much Rivera's stock climbs from a win over Cody Stamann, but if Cody Stamann goes out there and gets a decisive victory over Jimmy Rivera, who's arguably one of the toughest goes in the division, that's huge. And Cody Stamann's going to shoot up the rankings. I really like Jimmy Rivera here. It's crazy to think that Jimmy Rivera, who's 5'4", has a reach advantage over anybody. He has a 4-inch reach advantage here against Cody Stamann, which blows my mind. If you look back at his most recent fight against Peter Yan, watch that fight, and it looks like Jimmy Rivera is giving Peter Yan a lot of problems. And that's because Jimmy Rivera is just so well-rounded. He has good boxing, good output, good defensively, good takedown defense, good takedowns if he needs. He's just a good fighter. I'm a real fan of his. So outside of getting clipped and knocked down a few times against Peter Yan, he was giving him a lot of problems. I like Rivera in about 8,400. I'll probably have one lineup with him, but it's nothing that I'm really like forcing into my lineups.
Cameron mentioned it in the chat. He goes, people in quick turnarounds have done terrible during the pandemic. Good to go hard with Rivera. I understand where Cameron's coming there, but I just don't see this as, like you said a moment ago, it's not a DFS friendly fight.
No, I mean, it's not. They both have mediocre outputs. If you look at their average DraftKings scores, you have Rivera, who averages 57 points every time he fights, Stamann at 74. So if you're looking just at box scores, you would think that it's Stamann's fight. It's a type of fight. Maybe some people saying it may be a snooze type of fight. It could be.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a fight I'm targeting at all. Just because I think it's got 15-minute decision written over it. I know Sam in the chat mentioned that this is a card that you do kind of feel like there could be a lot of decisions, but I think there's some fights on here that I do look at as possibly first round finishes, and of course those are always the fights that we are targeting there. Then we got a female matchup, Molly McCann taking on Thalia Santos. This is that 8,200, 8,000 matchup. So the 8,200 side of this one is Molly McCann. On FanDuel, while Molly McCann is the higher salary, it's reverse on FanDuel, as Thalia Santos is $15, Molly McCann is $14, and then over on SuperDraft, 1.3 times for McCann, 1.35 times for Santos. And I mentioned about the over-under prop bet on the previous fight. In this fight, it's almost as much. It's minus 345.
That's crazy. And I can definitely see that going on. Molly McCann is in a good spot here at $14 on FanDuel. She should be a staple in your lineups. Ty, that's part of your core. I'm sure that you asked a question or going to ask that question. So I like Molly McCann here. If you look at Santos, it's such a padded record. She's fighting a lot of 0-0s, 1-0s, 2-0s, like a lot of debut type of fighters or very green fighters to get such a pretty record. She sits at 15-1. She's 0-1 in the UFC. And Jason, I think a very simple rule, right? Fade the chick who lost to Mara Romero Barella. And, that's Santos here. You have Molly McCann, who's 3-1 in the UFC, 10-2 overall, has a high output of strikes, 6 strikes a minute, also shoots a ton of takedowns at 2.59 per 15 minutes. I like Molly McCann here. I think it's a steal. I don't understand the pricing. Molly McCann has shown that she's just a well-rounded fighter. It will most likely go the distance for her output. She gets 100, points in some victories. As long as she can avoid having Santos take her back or work on some submissions, I think it's McCann's fight all day long. 9 takedowns in 4 fights with 9 advances to go with that. And Santos was taken down 2 times in her last bout against Mara Romero Barella. I like McCann quite a bit here, buddy.
Yeah, that was a split decision loss that she had against Romero. You look at Molly McCann, ever since losing her UFC debut to Jillian Robertson, she's won 3 in a row, all by decisions. Are you concerned about the sizable reach disadvantage that McCann has in this fight?
Yeah, so that's a good point. It's a 6-inch reach disadvantage that McCann is going to have to face against Santos. She has to get inside. She does like to strike, but she throws tons of loopy shots. Santos looked okay standing up, and I know she has some submission wins. So I don't know. I think I can see McCann getting inside quite a bit. It's not like Santos is great at establishing, her range or whatnot. I think McCann's a pretty safe play for me.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a fight I'm going to touch. As someone noted in the chat, they love your reactions on the 8,200, 8,000 fights.
Yeah, dude. Bro, they're brutal because they're so pivotal. I think 8,200 though, Jason, if you look at what she's done, she averages 84 DraftKings points per fight. I just see this as a very nice spot for a fighter at the 8,200 price range. Am I going to think that she's going to go out there and replicate her previous performance? No, probably not. But if she can do something similar at that price point, it's a very nice spot.
Hunter says, he goes, can we please answer on Renzo's gym being open? I guess you're wrong on that. Well, my brother trains there. I'll ask him. The reason I brought that up is that's just something Ryan Benoit mentioned. It may not have been open to the public,
right?
But, might have been open to UFC level type fighters.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I know Ryan Benoit's been training with Gary Tonin. As far as the academy going on for people that aren't fighters, I don't know. I know that Gary Tonin has been working with him extensively. So that is the number one thing that I'm taking into consideration for the fight.
Then we've got Abdul Razik Alhassan taking on, I'm not even going to try to butcher that name. Lazez, I guess would be his last name. Which someone asked a question related to this fight saying, is fading the main event to get Alhassan and Jake Shore crazy?
I have a couple lineups like that. Okay, let me bring this into consideration, right? Alhassan's been away from the sport for a little bit, right, Jason?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now he's with a very good coach at Fortis MMA. What does a good coach try to do? Tries to make you reach your potential and make sure that you're not going to be put in bad spots. So I wonder if having a good coach is going to somewhat try to calm Alhassan down. You know that he was a one-round killer going out there trying to get, put his opponent away immediately because he's a little emotional when he fights, which makes sense. And he's got a lot of stuff going on outside the MMA world that can definitely affect that. But when you have, say, like you have Faraz Sahabi in your corner, right? He's going to make you channel your game as best as he can without putting you in bad spots. And maybe it's to try to get Alhassan out of the first round. And I know that sounds crazy and it's like a crazy way to think. But if you look at Alhassan, he's 10-1 with 10 finishes. He really hasn't had to face too much adversity. And I'm not saying they want him to go out there and lose a round, but maybe be a little bit more patient.
And his only loss is via decision. That was to Akhmedov. Of course, first fight since September of 2018. I think everyone who follows MMA knows, his legal case that he was acquitted on. And you look at his opponent, UFC debut, and he's only gone to the decision twice in his career. He's won back-to-back fights. If you look at the, obviously Alhassan is a huge betting favorite in this one. He's one of the biggest betting favorites on this card. He is, where is that number at? He is minus 355. But if you want to get a little less odds, you're taking a win by TKO KO. It's minus 215. I think he is going to, his ownership will be fairly large in this one, and it's probably because of the ability that he has shown to go out there and get the quick victory. As you were talking about Saif Saud and working with him of maybe being a little patient fighter, it made me think of Alonzo Minifield, who is also a Saif Saud fighter, who of course we saw had that decision loss against Devin Clark a couple weeks ago on the Vegas card. So I think I think it's for me personally, it's play Alhassan or not take anybody else, or just move on and not take his opponent. Yeah, so don't overthink this one. Lazez is a good striker, pretty familiar with the area where they're fighting, and at $7K for a guy who has 8 finishes out of his 9 fights, maybe it's an upside pick of a complete dart throw, thinking that he can clip the wild Alhassan. I think Alhassan's going to be ranked pretty high in the division, the more he starts to get active in the division. 9,200, it's just, does he get the finish and does he pay off the price tag? I say he does. I like him here a lot in the fight. My pick is Alhassan
10 finishes, 10 wins. I'm picking him plenty of lineups.
John Phillips in any of your lineups?
If I could go negative on John Phillips, I would. All right.
Can't stop a takedown. Look, if he's fighting a guy that wants to stand and throw them bungalows,
yeah.
All right. You like John Phillips. That's been his last 2 fights. They've put him in there against strikers. But when you put him with anybody who can take the fight to the ground, and the prop bet on his opponent to win by submission, Pete, is minus 105, and his opponent, by the way, overall in the fight is minus 335.
Yeah,
it tells you things there.
I love his opponent here, Chimaev. I really like him against Phillips. We've seen what Phillips is, and at this point of his career, he's 22-9. He's 1-3 in the UFC. If anybody's going to look to grapple, it's almost like he's just like, okay, little resistance, little knowledge, little fight IQ when it comes to grappling. The thing with Chimaev, he's a very highly touted prospect and has an incredible ground game, aggressive striker. The thing at 8,900 is if he wants to strike a little bit just to kind of, get some excitement behind his name and to make an impression and then take him down second or third round and get a later finish. But the pick here is Chimaev at 8,900. Him, Kattar are 2 fighters that I really, really like in my lineups. I know that he holds a significant grappling advantage here, despite it being his debut. He's 6'2". I just think he's going to be able to toss Phillips around and just make a little highlight out of him here. 7,300. I'm crossing Phillips off. He's not even in my pool. If you think, he catches Chimaev, he does have 22 finishes and 22 victories. So it's like a KO or a bust for Phillips, but I do not see that happening here.
Yeah, of course, he trains, talking about Phillips' opponent here, trains at the All-Star Gym. Of course, that's most notably where Alexander Gustafsson's training. And by the way, Gustafsson's back next Saturday against Fabricio Verdum, so he's in there training as well. And Pete, as you like to say, you know what he needs to do to John Phillips in this case, right?
What's that?
Take him to Takedown City.
That's right. And it could be – the reason I don't know if it's going to be, crazy production – with Takedown City is I don't know if John Phillips can really get back to his feet too well. If I look at Phillips, he's been taken down 6 times in 4 fights and advanced upon 11 times. So Chimaev here all day long. I don't know about the outcome of the fight, but Chimaev will be victorious for sure.
Then we got another, a couple matchups that you might look at and say, hey, they might be pivotal matchups that you got to look at. We got Ricardo Ramos taking on Rome Murphy. Ramos, obviously, I remember being introduced to him 4 or 5 years ago, I want to say. And it was kind of said to me like, hey, this guy's got a chance to, be quickly in the UFC. And to me, if you're Murphy in this matchup, it's about, staying away from getting in a jiu-jitsu battle.
Right. Yeah. If he's able to stay out of the jiu-jitsu scenarios against Ricardo Ramos, I like Murphy here as an underdog pick. He's an aggressive striker, has been taken down a little bit in the past, was taken down 6 times in 1 fight. And that was his most recent fight. But that's against Tukigov, who does hold like a very aggressive wrestling type of approach. Ricardo Ramos is really a Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner who has good striking and does like to strike a little bit, but resorts to takedowns to win rounds or to help out his case of winning a decision. Murphy here for me at 7,400 is a guy that I kind of circled as a potential like a TKO fighter that could get it done. And I can see him just being too strong and too much of a man for Ramos here. I really think that he's able to defend, get back to his feet, and just start to work his ground and pound, his clinch fighting. I like Murphy here. He's a guy that I'm looking towards. Now, if Ramos takes his back, can he submit him? Of course. But I'm excited for this fight for sure.
And I feel like that fight against Zubara, he took on short notice, if my memory is correct on that one.
I think you're right.
But yeah, I mean, he's definitely, because I mean, we're always talking about, we're looking for those under 8K options. Who are those under 8K options, that you're looking at? And over on the SuperDraft side of things, if you like Murphy, 1.45 times a nice number.
Yeah, I like Murphy. I do. I really like him here. Now he's going to have to definitely avoid some bad spots, but it's an upside pick. And are the 7K options supposed to go out there and get easy wins? No, that's why they're in that range, but I can definitely see it happening.
Then we got a matchup of fighters making their UFC debuts. In this one, you've got the former Cage Warriors light heavyweight champion Modestas Bukauskas taking on Andreas here. Andreas has won 3 in a row. Modestas, so I talked to Modestas. I've talked to him on a couple occasions now. And so I saw this Instagram post he had about during the pandemic, he found out he has a hidden talent.
What is it?
That would be the ability to put a ping pong ball into a red Solo cup.
Oh, he's been playing pong. Okay, that's very odd and very weird. But okay. That's funny.
He basically said he would, when his opponents would sink it in, he'd make his girlfriend drink the beer.
Oh gosh.
I don't know if I necessarily believe that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, smart public answer.
But obviously, a fighter that highly touted coming into his UFC debut. Cage Warriors, an excellent promotion there in the UK. And obviously he's a big betting favorite on this one. He's $9,000 on TK, $19 on FanDuel, and 1.15 times on SuperDraft for his opponent. Andreas, $7,200 on DK, $11 on FanDuel, and 1.55 times on SuperDraft. I mean, look, if you think Andreas can pull the upset off here, he's a great punt play on all 3 platforms.
Yeah, I like this fight a lot. I feel like you're favoring Bukauskas a lot at 9K. I'm a little bit more towards Michailidis at 7,200. It's really not a fight that I think is necessary for like most of my lineups based on they're both making UFC debuts, and I don't really like putting a lot of my own money on fights like that. Michailidis is coming up a weight class, which is a little concerning. He's not really accustomed to fighting this high, has 11 finishes out of his 12 wins. Bukauskas has 9 finishes in his 10 wins. They've both been finished before. They've both been finished by strikes. They've both been finished early. I have seen Bukauskas was finished in the first round several times. So for me, Michailidis is a guy I'll sprinkle in a little bit, okay? A little salt-based sprinkle in a few of my lineups. 7,200 upside play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I need this fight in my lineup, but I don't know. I think he can get it done.
Well, I think if you're saying your core is Calvin Kattar and Abdulaziz Alhassan, I don't see how you could really fit someone like a Modestas in your lineup.
Yeah, you're gonna have to prioritize who you want in your lineups. And for me, Alhassan, he's a great option. I'm kind of going Kattar and Chimaev in a lot of my lineups. That's like my core for me. But I mean, you can make a case for Bukauskas. He's really a touted prospect. He has been taken down plenty of times. Michailidis does throw some spinning techniques. This could be a very back and forth fight, and almost could be like a Jiri Prochazka, Volkan Ozdemir all over again. And I don't know. I can see Michailidis getting it done or Bukauskas, but I will mostly fade Bukauskas as a 9K option and take a few shots at Michailidis.
Yeah, when we talk about fighters that can break the slate, I don't look at either one of these guys breaking the slate. Chimaev is a guy. I think Tim Elliott is another guy who could break the slate if he gets a win just because of takedowns and advances. I do like Modestas in this spot, but I mean, look, you definitely you do have to pay up for him here in this spot. Then we look at another matchup that probably is. I feel like you're probably going to have the winner of this fight to have the optimal lineup, and that's Jared Gordon taking on Chris Fishgold. Chris Fishgold, 7,900, 8,300 for good. And over on DraftKings, that was on DraftKings. Over on SuperDraft, 1.4 times for Chris, 1.25 times for Jared. And then on FanDuel, $16 for Jared, $15 for Fishgold in this spot. What's your thoughts on this one?
So Jared Gordon was actually my roommate when I stayed at Cowboy Cerrone's ranch. So I know Jared Gordon really, really well, and I'll be pulling for my buddy. I hope that he gets it done. I think he's proven that he can take a shot outside of, getting clipped really hard. Also has, some underrated takedown defense, some great ground and pound. If I were to say his strength is ground and pound, but in saying that, I can't ignore the fact that Gordon has been hit and hurt a lot in his losses and has been able to, he's had to pick the pieces back up and put it back together. And I think this is a tough matchup for both of these guys. It's almost like they're mirror fighters, but with different sort of strategies. Like Gordon's going to be looking for a TKO, probably via ground and pound. Fishgold's going to be looking to take him down and either ground and pound him or sub him. I don't hate either one. I really don't. Obviously, I'll have more Gordon because I know Gordon. I've trained with Gordon, and I like his strength and his ability to stuff takedowns and put people in bad spots with some good ground and pound. But Fishgold has had a tough resume, going facing Amir Khani and then facing Calvin Kattar. I mean, he has a victory over Tamer, but what does that really show you? Fishgold has 15 stoppages and 18 wins. Gordon has 8 stoppages in 15 wins. You need this fight, in my opinion. I'll have plenty of both just because this is my job. I got to do this. This is cool. I'll favor Gordon. I'll be like 60-40, but can I see Fishgold getting it done? Of course I can. I don't think he's a bad option. I think he's a 7K option that you need to circle and sprinkle in your lineups as well.
And you got to note this is at 145. This is Jared's first fight at 145 pounds since 2017. I mean, look, you look at his losses, it's all against noble competition. Charles Oliveira, Joaquim Silva, Diego Fajea. I think the big question is the corner situation, which Jared's manager, Brian Butler, mentioned about the issues that were there. So what's going to happen is Paul Felder is going to come out of the broadcast booth for one fight because him and Jared are boys. He's going to corner Jared. One of the Extreme Couture coaches, Eric, I saw he's going to be in the corner as well. So I think that's the question of, now, look, this week they're all in quarantine, so I guess maybe it does help this out a little bit. But I wonder of this fight makes it out of the first round.
Yeah.
How does the corner work with Jared? And because obviously they've not been a part of the camp leading up to this one.
Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting dynamic. I think round 1 favors Fishgold, and I think the later the fight goes, it favors Jared Gordon to really get into his rhythm and start to defend takedowns better, work some ground and pound, some good boxing as well. I mean, his standing up, he has good boxing. Fishgold, really not known for his striking, but he throws heavy, Jason. And, Jared Gordon did get knocked, TKO'd from Charles Oliveira. So we shall see, but you need this fight.
I do like Jared Gordon in this spot. He'll be. I think I'll have a lot of shares of Jared Gordon, especially at that price point at 8,300. It's gonna, especially some of the high price options that I do like. He's gonna kind of help me build out my lineups a little bit. Then we got a female matchup: Diana taking on Liana. 8,600 for Diana, 7,600 for Liana in this one. 15 and 13 on FanDuel, and then over on the SuperDraft side of things, 1.3 times for Diana, and Liana is at 1.35 times. Both these fighters lost their UFC debut last year. Diana losing to Molly McCann, Liana losing to Sarah Moraes.
Yeah, they're both 0-1. If you go back and you look, Belbita faced Molly McCann, like you just mentioned, and she actually looked really good. She has a ton of output for strikes. She's one of my favorite mid plays here at 8,600. You have to pay a premium for her. It's most likely going the distance, but if she would have got the victory, she would have had a ton of points against Molly McCann. And in saying that, she was in a lot of bad spots. So the fact that she would have scored so well after really not being on the feet for a lot in the third round, but in the first and second, it was a mixed bag where she was in terrible positions, not able to score any points. And, if she would have got the decision, which definitely shouldn't happen, but she would have had a ton of points. So against a lower ranked fighter, Jojua at 7,600, I'm just not impressed with Jojua, man. I don't think that she's really UFC caliber. If I look at Belbita, I see a fighter that throws a ton of strikes, 6 strikes a minute, did absorb 7 strikes a minute against Molly McCann, which is a lot. But Jojua, she kind of looked like a deer in headlights, Jason, almost like she was freezing a little bit, not throwing too much, not really going for it. Started to turn it on as the fight progressed, but ultimately was finished from Sarah Morris. Belbita, 8,600. Does she get a finish? Possibly a TKO finish. I would most likely side with a decision victory, and I think that's pretty safe.
Could be pretty low ownership for her.
Yeah, I think it could be. What's odd is Americani last week, right? Same price. I went out there and had a great performance. Did you say Americani was in the optimal or not?
No.
That's pretty odd because he went out there and he subbed them pretty quickly. And it goes to show you just that lineup construction is huge. It's all about leverage, ownership, reaching up for the right person, being underweight on people. So Belbita here, I think, is somebody that can be overlooked and potentially score well.
How about kudos to Americani as he puts his opponent to sleep, helps him with his legs to help him, bring it back. Man, that's class, man, pure class.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And we talked about Americani's ground game and him going for submissions, and that's exactly what happened. Props to Americani. He made a fan of me after watching his class act performance there.
Of course, this is the UFC Fight Night Kattar versus Ige strategy show right here on Awesemo.com, and we are sponsored by SuperDraft. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers contests for PGA, NASCAR, and MMA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using the promo code Awesemo10, and it's $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more, and $20 total free on your first deposit of $100 or more. Download it in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits, more winning. Now, many sports may be on hiatus, but Awesemo Plus is a sign up today for a platinum package, which includes access to all of the Awesemo Plus projections, tools, and content for PGA, esports, NASCAR, MMA, soccer, and KBO baseball. You can review your membership options by clicking the Awesemo Plus tab in the upper left-hand corner of the Awesemo.com homepage. Of course, you want to be following Awesemo on Facebook and Instagram, as we are providing free Awesemo player projections for PGA, NASCAR, and MMA on our Instagram page, which says at Awesemo_com, and our Awesemo Facebook page daily. So make sure to give them a follow. And the fighter that we are featuring for Wednesday's card is Jake Shore. And we're going to talk about Jake here a little bit. Biggest favorite on the card, 9,400, 6,800 for Aaron Phillips. Aaron Phillips taking this fight on about a week and a half notice. Of course, this is Aaron's return to the UFC. The last time we saw him in the UFC 2014, went 0-2 in that stint. He has won 5 in a row. After losing, I want to say it was 3 in a row. Of course, when you look at Jake on the other side, Cage Warriors bantamweight champion, won his UFC debut last year. One of the highly touted European prospects that the UFC has signed over the last year.
I love Shore here. I really do. I like him here in this spot. The problem is that big 9,400 price tag, and it's almost like that Amanda Hebas same spot almost, except the $100 difference. How does he do in this spot? Well, he's going to go out there and he's going to dominate Phillips, and that's the truth. He's really going to go out there. He's going to take him down. He's going to hit him with some strikes. I love him in this spot. Only throws 3 strikes a minute, but the takedowns and the advances really impressed me the last performance. Now, can he replicate that performance, moving forward? Maybe not, because he could go out there and get like a quick sub and not really pay off, a takedown like an Americani score, right? Americani had a flawless performance, but he didn't really, score all that well. If Shore goes in there and just gets it done quickly, who knows? So I will definitely have my exposure for Shore. He's going to win this fight. So if you're doing like traditional bets and whatnot, put him in some parlays for sure. I like him. 4 takedowns in his past fight. He had 4 takedowns in one fight with 11 advances, Jason. And if you look at Phillips, he's been taken down 11 times in his 2 UFC fights with 13 advances. And I watched his most previous fight outside the UFC. and he was getting taken down by a guy that I don't think is on Jack Shore's level at all. So take Shore all day long. Don't take Phillips. Cross him off. He's on both the Phillips this week. I'm scratching him out, okay?
Kingslayer in the chat says Shore is a staple in the optimal. Would you agree with that?
So Shore is a staple to get a victory, for sure. So for cash, I think it's as safe as it can go. Now, it's all based on production because say he didn't have those 11 advances, Jason, he would not have had 121 DraftKings points. Like those 11 advances really just blow up that score. I don't think he's going to have so much resistance against Phillips. I know Phillips hasn't been finished, in the UFC, but I think that Shore could be the guy to get it done.
Opening fight of the night, we got Gonzalez versus Kenneth. Kenneth, the favorite in this one, 8,700. Gonzalez is at 7,500. UFC debut for both of these fighters. Gonzalez 7-1 his last 8. Does hold a knockout win against UFC vet Luke Barnett. Kenneth on the other side, lost to Eric Spicely by submission on Tough. Lost in the Contender Series by submission. What does kind of concern me is Kenneth's last 2 opponents' records, 0-0 and 14-19. As someone that was, 6-1 or whatever it was, I don't understand why you're taking on a pro debut at that point in your career. Maybe that's a situation. Late nose could be one of those things. And we had a question earlier in the chat: is the first fight a fight we should be targeting?
I don't know. It could be just such a sloppy fight, Jason, that it gets out of the first round and, you don't see a finish till the third round or a sloppy back and forth. They're both exhausted. If I'm going to take many shots, I guess I'll take a couple shots at Gonzalez here at 7,500 for the fact that he has a 16-4 record against legitimate opposition, 16 stoppages out of 16 wins. Berg has 8 stoppages out of his 8 wins. So on paper, it looks like you need it, right? It looks like somebody's getting finished, and it very well could be needed. It's a fight I'm a little bit underweight on, just because I feel like it could just be sloppy. Berg is big. He's okay striking. Gonzalez is a little bit more wild, has some big wins over some good guys, but we've seen him get finished. So I don't know. If I'm going to lean anybody, I guess I'd have more exposure to Gonzalez at 7,500.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of favorites we like on this card. We're going to go through our picks here momentarily, but that to me is the thing that you got to find some underdogs. So let's get into some questions that we've not answered. I've been writing down as we go along. So if I miss your question, put them up in the chat, or if you want to ask an additional question, put it in the chat. First up from Ty. Well, you know the question from Ty. FanDuel cash score. Who are the top 3 you should build a lineup around?
Okay, so I'm going to pick Kattar, 22. Little steep of a price, but I still like him here. I would say Molly McCann at 14. That's a misprice. They screwed something up there. And then another fighter that I think could get it done early. I'm going to go with Chimaev at 18. I like him here. Phillips has 0 takedown defense. I could take down Phillips plenty of times, and that doesn't say much.
Be sure to hit that thumbs up button here on YouTube. Really do appreciate it. Let's get those thumbs up over 70 before we get out of here. We got a couple of questions about MVP on FanDuel. Evan asked for MVP for FanDuel. Sam asked for our top 3 MVPs on FanDuel.
MVPs on FanDuel. Okay, so if you think it goes past 3 rounds, Kattar could be somebody you want to look at. Molly McCann honestly could be that staple that could get it for you. She throws crazy output. Santos is tough, doesn't really quit. I like Molly McCann here. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, especially on the FanDuel side of things, I really like Molly McCann.
Yeah.
At $14. At the MVP spot, my only concern would be is can she get the finish? And does it obviously there's a price point aspect to this, but when I'm thinking about fight, Chimaev, Alhassan,
Yeah.
Tim Elliott, Calvin Kattar. Those are kind of people that I look at as core in that MVP spot.
Yeah, that's a good point. Alhassan at 18 should definitely be somebody that you want in your lineups of FanDuel favorite strikers. The only issue, right, is his output. He relies on such power that he doesn't really have to throw much. What happens if he doesn't find that knockout shot? The 20 or 25 strikes per round. Let's call it 30. It's really not that much.
Evan asks for cheap guys in a 50-50 contest.
Okay. Cheap DraftKings or?
I would imagine he means DraftKings did not stay.
Okay. In a 50-50, so cash. Cheap guys. I'd say, I know it's not in the 7K range, but 8,200 McCann's cheap. I've already talked about that. Murphy at 7,400, somebody that I would it'll allow me to pay up for, and I think has a legitimate chance of stopping Ricardo Ramos or being just too strong and getting a decision. If you're looking for a finisher in the 7K range, I guess you could look at Fishgold at 7,900. Based on his resume, it's a tough fight, man. You need that fight, so it's either you need Gordon in your lineup or you need Fishgold. Outside of that, Gonzalez at 7,500 is not a bad pump play.
Brian asks, rank these 4 fighters. Jake Shore, Alhassan, Kattar, Chimaev.
That's a great question. I'm going to put Kattar 1. Now, that may surprise you, but I'm doing it because of the 5 rounds. Say he's extremely patient and Dan Ige is tough as nails, right? He does get a little rocked and has been dropped plenty of times, but I know that he's tough. Say the finish doesn't happen till rounds 4 or 5. I like my chances there. Or maybe a finish doesn't happen at all. I still like the accumulation of strikes for Kattar at 9,100. I'll say him. Fighter with the easiest matchups, sure. Does he pay off, though? Mm-hmm. I think I'd say Kattar, Chimaev for me, Shore, and then Alhassan. And that's crazy that I have Alhassan last in that ranking. That's just kind of what I'm feeling. What do you think?
My fear on Alhassan, he knocks him out with like 10 punches.
Yeah, he pulls the Francis Ngannou, right?
Yeah.
Throws a couple
Then the score is not as good as you'd hope. I mean, that's why you say you want that first round knockout that happened in the 4-minute mark, not the 1-minute mark.
Yeah, get some points for us.
Exactly. Sam asks, top 2 underdogs, top 2 favorites.
Top 2 underdogs for me. Okay, I'm going to go with Murphy. I mentioned him. He's my favorite underdog. I would say another underdog that can definitely get it done over a struggling fighter is Benoit, especially if he's been working with Gary Tonin. My favorite, Kattar and Chimaev. I love them.
All right, let's get a couple more questions here, and then we'll get out of here. Of course, we'll be back on Wednesday, live before lock. We'll be, that is at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. Then Thursday, we got the strategy show for Saturday's card. Then, of course, Saturday, live before lock.
Jason, you just said it. What time are we doing Wednesday?
5:30.
Fights are on when?
I'm pretty sure it's 5:30. I'll tell you right now. I tweeted earlier today. Let me find that old tweet. Where is that old?
Yeah,
tweet?
I got you thinking now.
Wednesday 5:30.
Fights are at 7.
Saturday 3:30 start time.
All right. I got a little Zoom classes to teach, so I got to make sure that I schedule them around that.
Rhett says favorite upside low price play.
Favorite upside low price play. Favorite. All right, you start that. I'm gonna look right here.
Favorite low price play. I would look at someone like a Lerone Murphy at 7,400.
Yep, agree. With upside. I think he's got upside.
Yeah. I don't like Danny Ige in that spot, but if somehow he can get the fight to the ground and use transitions, I don't like him in that spot. Calvin Kattar is going to be a staple, and I would probably bet you. I would bet I have 65 to 75% shares of Calvin Kattar.
I probably have about 80%. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking at a 7K option, right? Guys that have crazy finishes. Gonzalez, 16 wins, 16 finishes. Something to look at. Fishgold, 18 wins, 15 finishes. That's a lot, Jason. Michailidis, 12 fights, 11 finishes. So those are guys that you can definitely also kind of put a star and sprinkle in and just kind of play the percentages.
So before we give our picks to round out this week's show, let's just get one more question in here. Could Ige be a stack if they go 5 rounds on the feet?
I'm not big on stacking, Jason, but if it goes championship round, I mean, I feel like if it goes championship rounds and it's a back and forth fight, it's hard not to have a stack work, especially because Dan Ige is 7,100. I say no in this situation, though. I think Kattar finishes him here.
All right, so let's give our picks and get out of here. I'm going to go Kattar, Elliott. Give me Cody Stamann to pull off the upset. McCann, Alhassan, Chimaev. Give me Murphy in an upset. Bukauskas, Gordon, Belbita, Shore, and give me Gonzalez as an underdog.
Nice. Okay, so I have Kattar. I'm going to go Benoit. I think he is able to defend enough. Going Rivera, McCann, Alhassan, Chimaev, Murphy. I like him a lot. I'm going to switch this up. I'm going Michailidis. I'll go Gordon. I'm hoping that my buddy pulls it together. Belbita easily, Shore easily, and Gonzalez for the upset win.
Of course, as I mentioned, we'll be back on Wednesday live before lock. Of course, be sure if you ever have any questions for Pete, hit Pete up on Twitter at Pete the Heat MMA. Of course, I am at Jason_Floyd. So that's going to do it for this edition of the MMA DFS Strategy Show right here on Awesemo.com.